Topkats. Pride. Your reporter, Otis Q. Pate.
Yeah, I'm still scratching my head, wondering why the recent video that we put up about 2 weeks ago on YouTube, the video about the U.S. national debt being at over $19.5 trillion has not gathered or garnered or attracted more attention than it has. Because after all United States citizens are responsible for our national debt that is created by our government. The U.S. citizens are the ones that are responsible for paying back the debt because we are what is used as collateral by the United States government, incorporated in 1871, by the way. United States of America is actually a corporation that was incorporated in 1871. And the president of that corporation is currently Barack Hussein Obama. And the vice president, of course, is Joe Biden. But we are the actual commodity that the United States government uses to secure the national debt. As U.S. citizens, that is exactly what our role is. And it's kind of complicated, but many of you will probably find it easy. But I can just touch on a bit of why that is, because we are actual employees of the nation, which means that we are the workers and we are actually where the real value comes from the working force. That is the main reason that it's that way. And this whole saga and this whole law and all of this type of stuff that I'm referring to begins as soon as our mother signs our birth certificate when we are born. We become an actual commodity, and therefore we are totally responsible as citizens or / employees, and some people even say debt slaves to the state. This actually begins as soon as our mother turns over that signed birth certificate in the hospital, in the clinic, when your birth is declared. My name is Otis Q. Pate, here on the Topkats Rebel Connection, and today I want to touch on what the U.S. national debt actually means to U.S. citizens. I don't know if that's going to be the actual title once we upload the show for you to find. However, that is still the topic, or at least the umbrella for which I want to elaborate on and finally give you bullet points to remember, especially U.S. citizens who may find this show. I want to make sure I give you bullet points, 15, 16 or so, which can remind you the very reasons why the U.S. national debt is a problem, not only for us in the here and now, but for our children in the future. It is a total burden on the youth that follows each generation because the national debt forever increases. Again, this information is very intricate. It's very complicated. And what I'm going to do after we come back from a little vibe session, as I prepare my information, what we're going to do is just touch on a few articles from mainstream news journalists who actually are specialists in these areas. Because, I want to be sure that I give you the proper and most accurate information while I got your time. Thank you for stopping by. Topkats Rebel Connection. We're rebels with a cause, without a pause, providing to you edutainment wrapped in eclectic music. how the U.S. national debt affects you, your family members, your friends. How does that happen? That is what we are going to delve into right now with an article from www.nodebttoday.com. This article is actually not dated. Many articles that I use to make sure I provide the most accurate information, for some reason these days, these articles aren't dated. I don't know what that has to do with, but I like to see dates, time stamps on these articles, because as you know, you could spend your whole time going over an article and you'll realize that perhaps a few years later that the article was outdated and the information was inaccurate. But I'm going to just surmise from looking here at the bottom of this article. It says that it's from 2016. Here on nodebttoday.com, it begins off by saying nearly every day, the average American, we listen to a whole bunch of news reports about this skyrocketing national debt, and we dismiss this news as irrelevant. It's tempting to think of the national debt as an abstract concept with little personal application, especially when Americans have debts of their own to worry about. In reality, the magnitude of the national debt has very real and very powerful effects on Americans' personal finances. Tax rates, interest rates, and inflation are just a few of the areas affected by the national debt that impact Americans on a personal level. Now, some facts about the national debt to give you a better understanding of a mind-boggling concept, and that is very, very true. We'll provide, and this is this report saying that they'll provide a few brief facts about the national debt. Now, here in the article, they're going a bit far back for my taste, but that's fine because what happens in the past shapes the future. And as of August 2009, the national debt amounted to just under $11.7 trillion. And that would be $11,700 billion. A figure that rises at an average of $3.8 billion per day. Economists of all kinds have admonished government officials that the national debt will be the next great economic crisis if the government does not commit itself to long-term physical sustainability. Now, why should we care? Well, we should care because, as I mentioned, that it all affects us in the end. Because the national debt isn't just the government's problem. When the government goes into red, they use their money, taxpayers' money, to handle the mounting cost, which is already prohibitive. Currently, the government spends $452 billion annually, and this again is in 2009. But it paints an exact picture and gives us great insight on what's happening today as of this broadcast in November 2016. Currently, the government spends $452 billion annually on debt interest payments, and that money came or will soon come directly out of our pockets. The national debt also has a devastating ripple effect on the economy. Here are a few examples of how the national debt could impact you dramatically, or I should say us dramatically, but this will impact all individuals as long as you are a United States citizen, which means employee, which means worker, which means in many cases, depending on who you ask, a debt slave. The first thing that is shared here is higher taxes are the result of a national debt. And the higher it gets, the worse off we are. The government simply cannot sustain the current disparity between how much it is spending and how much it is taking in with tax revenue. In other words, to avoid going completely broke, the government will have no choice but to raise taxes or drastically reduce spending. And I must add right there that right now, as of November 2016, our national debt is at 19,500 billion. And you can check the U.S. debt clock online for an exact confirmation of the ongoing number. However, this article says if past performance is an indication, the former is far more likely, which means we'll be paying higher taxes for a long, long, long time. Next, one of the most important things that is affected by the national debt is reduced benefits and programs. You see, if the government decides to attack the national debt by curtailing spending, government benefits, like Social Security, may be reduced significantly. Programs will also be cut, which could affect anything from federal students to financial aid, as well as Medicare. The next annotation that I would like to share with you here is higher interest rates that affects all U.S. citizens as a result of the high United States national debt. High interest rates and the rising national debt will eventually result in the reluctance of investors and foreign governments to purchase treasury bonds, thereby forcing interest rates to go up, to rise. That means that you will pay more for an auto loan, for example. That means that you, or as I should always say, we pay more for home loans, mortgages. That means that we will pay more for credit cards and other lending products. Conclusively here, as far as the article from this publication goes, which I will be leaving a link to so you can fully check out the article for clarity and for research, a weak dollar is the roundup here. Because when the government gets frantic to pay off national debt, it tends to allow the value of the dollar to plummet so it can repay its debt in cheaper dollars. This is bad news for consumers. Yeah, that would be us, as a weak dollar commonly results in rampant inflation. And for those who may be wondering what inflation is, that's when you have a dollar and it won't buy as much today as it did yesterday or a week before or a month before or years before. The same dollar buys less. That's inflation. My name is Otis Pate here on the Topkats Rebel Connection. Finding it a really interesting topic, finding it a very interesting time since the presidential elections have concluded, and I just cannot let that ride like that with a misspeak. What I should have said, the presidential selection being concluded, the election selection, because as many of you may know and may find it a bit difficult to share with friends and family and what have you, because of being judged as a nut or perhaps someone who doesn't know what they're talking about. And that is strictly due because they are not aware of the information that you're sharing, which is totally accurate pertaining to our country and pertaining to the Electoral College, which is actually a process, they like to say on their website at the Electoral College for the United States. They like to say that it is a concept and not a place, not a destination, but the Electoral College addressed at the same time, ironically enough, is in Washington, D.C. And I'd like to take this opportunity to encourage you to go online and to check out their website, because the Electoral College's website is full of very in-depth and insightful information, providing to you not only great articles, but also videos which fully explain the Electoral College's way of doing things. And the most highlighted information that's there to me, which I'm going to trumpet while I'm on the mic, is that the Electoral College clearly and explicitly states that United States citizens do not vote to elect the president nor the vice president into office. That's what the Electoral College will tell you. And they will also further conclude that they have the legal right to be able to select whoever the electorals decide that they want to be the president and the vice president. I have to mention vice president again, because the vice president is often left out of the equation when the Electoral College's process is discussed. Many people, for some reason, like to leave out the vice president is also selected by the Electoral College. So I know that leaves many people thinking that, it sounds a bit like a dictatorship. Okay, so hey Q, what does it mean when our votes don't count? Well, the votes don't count as far as the selection or the election of the vice president and the chief, the president. But it does count as far as giving the establishment, those who are actually in control of what is actually called and factually called the shadow government. It gives them a clear picture, a response and information on what the masses are thinking in the United States and who they actually feel, okay, this person should be our president. It gives them a consensus, and that's why we go to the polls. Please look up the definition for the word consensus, and please look up the definition for the word poll. What is a poll? Spelled P-O-L-L. And as well, it gives them a lot of other algorithmic information that they use for data archives. Yeah, it is how it is, and I most certainly don't agree with everything, but as things go, I think a group consciousness and awareness of how the system works is exactly what's needed. And so that's why I am here. This is why I'm here reporting to you on my findings in my research. And with that group consciousness, with that national consciousness, and it reaches a certain acme point, a certain critical mass, once that is obtained, then I'm sure therein we will be able to use our power, use the consciousness to change the current standing of the circumstances and move forth with a system that we, at least the majority of us, can agree to and be comfortable with. And so I'll be right back after this vibe to round up this broadcast with the annotated points that I've compiled. Stick and stay with T.R.C. Topkats Rebel Connection can be found at Spreaker.com/Topkats Airborne. That's Spreaker.com/TOPKATSAIRBORN. Most definitely, shout out to the artists that make available their tracks online so that shows like ours can bring you different vibes. Big ups to the artists and producers that provide those tunes through Creative Commons. But what's affected? That's where we left off right before we went into the vibe. What's affected by the U.S. national debt that the U.S. citizens should know the most about? Well, the annotated nodes are government programs are slashed, like for small business loans, college grants, school programs. Probability of inflation increases. Taxes are raised. Benefits are lowered in general. The infrastructure repair is ignored. Sovereignty of our country becomes a problem because we are responsible to interest incurring debt to outside nations, like, for example, China and Japan. And just take China, for example. We actually owe China over $1.1 trillion as of this broadcast. International economic influence, confidence, and power is decreased. Higher interest rates are experienced. Social security benefits are slashed significantly. And what the government actually issues us is a IOU note. The economy's general health and strength is crippled, as well as jobs are affected, like hiring and the ability to move up and receive a higher wage. Grocery prices go up, and the purchase of basic goods increase. Gas prices shoot up, and even things like car repair becomes more expensive. Interest on banking loans and for home mortgages increase. Younger generations are affected. And last but certainly not least, this high U.S. national debt discourages investment. So that's about 15, 16 or so different points that are very, very detrimental to our economy, to our quality of life. And I most certainly think that this information makes the topic probably one of the most important, if not the most important information that you will receive as far as the health of our society, as far as the standing of our relationship with our government. The U.S. national debt is currently at over $19.5 trillion. And I say, well, enough is enough with all these degrees and all of these different accomplishments that these people have garnered, have achieved in their lives and have been placed in these positions. I expect for them to get this outrageous circumstance under control. My name is Otis Pate, and I would like to thank you for stopping by. And we hope to see you back here again real soon, preferably for the next upload. If not, I'll be stalking you, trying to drop off a little bit of something in your pocket or in your device. But until then, Take care.